What's up, guys? Last week I said I wanted to journal my trades each week and do it in like a really transparent manner. Last week I only took one trade. I lost zero point 0.1 R, and I'm back again this week, and it was a much different week. Did much better. Had a great week. Up 8.9 R this week off of two different trades. So I'd have to say it was a very good week. And I'm kind of happy to break everything down and explain how I saw these trades, and why I took them, and kind of like give some like detail in real time. So I longed Sol and I longed Sui, and I did it right before the breakout. And I'm out of both trades at this point, and I booked the profit. It's in USDT. Um, let's start with Sol because it was actually the genesis of kind of everything I was looking at. Always, always, always start on high time frames. So let's just look at the weekly first. Obviously, stochastics in an uptrend. We are trending. The weekly chart is a little bit of a different picture. Um, it's somewhat forming two different ranges to me here. It's like, call it candidly a range where it is right now here, and then the top range is up here, which would be confluent with these old highs. So just taking it level to level, opportunity to opportunity. Um, Again, weekly bullish, daily also bullish. So let's go back to when I actually took the trade. So this was taken before this thrust candle. So it was Wednesday when I was looking at this. So let's go back to Wednesday. And this is what the picture said. So in my mind, I was like, all right, we're either consolidating here for the next leg higher or distributing, and this was just kind of a short-lived blip, and it's the tariff thing is not going to work out. Economy is not doing great besides tariff relief. It's over for now. Um, but on the stochastics, I was like, this is kind of bottoming out. I do think this is like due for a pop, or it could pop. So I was like, all right, well, this needs to be a little more actionable. Like, where would I try to get in on Solana? Like, what is a good place to bid if I am going to go long? And ironically, I saw this at first as and now you can kind of see what I eventually did. But I think it's interesting to say that this is actually a short setup for me to begin with. Um, so originally, I just kind of flipped this around. I said, hey, I see this as like, you know, boom, oh, this is starting to break down. Um, this is kind of like, call this that's a lower high. I was like, shit. Um, my idea here, honestly, was to short the underside of this, probably hide stop somewhere here, and I was just going to target here. So that was going to be like a 1.92R trade. Not a bad trade. I mean, you could have, if this actually had worked out, I didn't take the trade, but I'm saying like this could have been not a bad trade, nothing to scoff at. But as price compressed, I didn't take the trade. I just kind of watched it. I knew that there was the FOMC rate decision was coming, and it creates a lot of volatility when they update rates or Jerome Powell speaks. So I'm hesitant to jump into to futures trades or to perp trades before something like that happens, just because of the volatility, and if you're using tight stops, you can get stopped out more easily. But then this was kind of progressing, and I'll just keep fast forwarding. I was like, this kind of looks like a higher low at this point. So then I was like, oh, lower low, higher low. This is actually just compression. And where I got interested actually was this candle here. I said, okay, that little candle there, if you look on the 1 hour, it's all much more dramatic. I said, hey, this is something I'm interested in. And this actually was the night before FOMC. This was Wednesday, FOMC was Thursday. I, visually, arbitrarily drew this range low here. I said, hey, This is clear interest. Just go to volume. I have this volume chart. Blue is buy, an extreme buy. Purple is an extreme sell. So I saw this pumping on kind of extreme buying, and I was like, "This is interesting. I think this is something that's worth placing a bid for." But I kind of like being greedy with my bids, and I said, "I'm just gonna bid the level." And then this happened, and I think I went to bed and I was like, "Oh my God, I literally missed it by a few pennies." And then of course it like goes up and takes off, and I was like, "Oh, this is just gonna do exactly what I thought it was without coming back down." But FOMC, always be patient when FOMC is happening. There's a lot of volatility. So these candles here are FOMC. Boom, I'm filled. So it hit my level. It reacted very nicely. 145 was great support, and then it took off. So the way that I like to play most of my trading is I don't buy 100% of a position the first go round. I usually will do 50% of a position and then another 50% if it goes in the direction of my favor. And the reason for this is so that you can minimize losses. And I also am a big fan of having some type of like invalidation, so you don't have to lose a whole position size or whatever you're using for your capital. But I basically said, hey, you know, the good, technically sound trader to me was like, all right, bid the level, stop below structure. This is only a 2.65% stop loss, so all things considered, like pretty tight stop to begin with. Um, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of people that did it, here and then put the stop right below this wick, and they would have done very well. But much riskier, right? Risk reward. You have to always be thinking of those things. But I basically bid 50% here. I told myself I would cut it if it goes beneath here and wait for it to get back above the blue line. So like if we crossed this red line, I would have cut the half position, and then I would have re-entered if it went back up here, and I would have just market bought upon here. And I just basically said, this is a little bit arbitrary, but I basically was like, this looked meaty, kind of this level here, and I said, if you can just like get above like these wicks here, I was like, I'll put my other half position, I'll raise my stop, because really at that point, it's this low here that I think kind of this all hinges upon. So again, a little bit timid with the stop. I could have probably brought it right here and just been a little bit more aggro. But again, not that big, 2.4% stop. 50% here, 50% here. Zooming out, you may say, hey, that's not really that big of a target. I mean, this trade was a 3-hour trade. Realized fully I didn't like TP on the way up. I took full TP. And the reason I sold it at, and now you can see on the daily that where it actually went. But if you look on its historical price performance, there is a significant amount of tops here at 160, kind of chunky resistance there. Top, 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 support, low. That's all at this level. So I said, hey, no shame in TPing at support and selling your position. That was what I did. I stuck to the plan. This is the 4-hour bar. It got to my take profit level, I think, in less than 24 hours. It did. It was like 23 hours and change. And in my mind, I at least told myself, I said, hey, I'll get back in it if it keeps going up. And really what I candidly should have done was, this was a long, obviously. I should have hedged short and just taken a short so I could have realized the gains there. And then if this takes off, I could have just closed the short, and that's really what I should have done. And I think there were some traders that I admire that were talking about doing that, and they did it. Right now, it's just chopping around. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't like placing trades until New York Stock Exchange hours, so like Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4 p.m. is kind of like when I like to bid. Obviously things will close outside of those hours if you're setting TPs, but I don't know. Like this, I could see this going higher, and I could see this also just kind of distributing and chopping around and taking its time a little more. Like the way alts and Bitcoin and most cryptos trend is, it's like, trend, consolidation trend, consolidation trend. I do think Solana will continue to go higher, but it's kind of like at what point you have to think about capital allocation, funding, transaction fees, things like that. So you don't always want to be holding perps just if things are going to chop around. And like also, the reason this trade was so great is because I got such a tight stop because I caught the move versus having to be like, hey, bid the level, put stop down here, whatever, 5%, 7% down, and just wait for it to happen. Like that isn't, you're not going to make as much money on those kind of trades as you can when you're very precise. So this is where it's at. This is a journal, not necessarily me predicting the future price trends of Solana. Fuck it, we ball. I might as well just do it while I'm on this topic. I am interested in Solana again if we come back down to this level, do something like that. I am back in. Let's go, baby. Run it back to $1 billion. What else? That's probably actually really where I'm interested. I mean, look, if this is chops around here and it does something significant, like kind of makes a higher high, and there's nice stop placement I could do, I would take it like that. So always have plans. Desired plan 1, and then if it doesn't give a pullback, take it up there. That's Sol. And then Sui was actually the better of the two trades. This was 5.1R. Around 5.1R. Awesome trade. Honestly, really, 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 really similar to Sol. It's pretty much identical to Sol in a lot of ways, but it was just a cleaner, way cleaner. I won't zoom out. It looks kind of similar on the zoomed out picture. The one thing that was different about Sui than Sol is the stochastics. If you remember the Sol stochastics, they were all the way down here, and they were kind of just about to turn like that. And I was like, okay, like that seems a little more bottomed. This was, I'll just go back because it's not hard to do that. Yeah, it looked like this. So I was like, shit, this seems like this needs to cool off a lot more. Like it had a very overheated top, which actually Bitcoin had as well, which that's the thing about stochastics, which I'll totally acknowledge. It's not a silver bullet. You can't just use these and, have a foolproof trading system. You have to kind of like use your brain with the indicators. Duh. Long overblown overbought cycle, and that simply just means that it was so freaking bullish that these stochastics couldn't pull back. So a lot of buying, really, really long, wide stochastics versus like a blip, which kind of makes these shorter tops versus like a wide top. And this is more like, I would say, bullish consolidation, and this will go higher, I'm sure. So I saw this and I was like, oh, this needs to cool off more. It's not quite ready. It was a little bit more of like, in my mind, a flyer almost. I was like, this is pumped a lot harder. It needs to retrace a lot more than Sol. It's higher beta to Solana and to Bitcoin, obviously. But the level was just so clean, in my opinion. And I'll just go down to the 1 hour. It's a little bit easier to see everything. So this was actually let's see. Yeah, I think. Let's just fast forward. I'll know exactly what's happening. So this is Sui. I'm not in this trade. This is the night before FOMC. I was watching this in Sol, obviously, and I actually at this point was only interested in Sol. And so I had the Sol bid, and then I got filled on the Sol bid, and I was like, oh, this is the same setup, but like better. So like I want to take this one too. And this actually was the trade I took. So I literally just put it right under the bottom. I said, hey, same thing as Sol. This is clearly a higher low. That was the lower low. That's the higher low. This is just consolidation. This is flipping the key level. I literally just longed it right at the level. I probably should have waited for a few bar confirmations, but I was like, screw it. Like you kind of see here that it chopped around a bunch. Not really a bunch. I mean, I was looking at this on the 5 minute chart, so it felt like a freaking lifetime. But I took half the position at the level, and then I was a little more cheeky than Sol. I think if you remember on Sol, I kind of added the second one a little higher up. On this one, I said, hey, if this just moves in the right direction, I want in. And I think my second one was a little bit higher. I don't think it was this price here. You know, this is a 4% stop loss. This is a 3.4% stop loss blended. So my price was like in here for the blended one. It chopped around and then it just took off. Boom, 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 boom. And let's zoom out to the 4 hour. And I was targeting the yearly open. That seemed like a great place to take profit. You can see that price reacted to the yearly open right there like that. Seems like just kind of like a logical next step. And this, again, great trade, 5R trade. So it wasn't like it was like a puny price target. So let's keep going. Fast forward, fast forward. This one was kind of frustrating, actually. Look at how close I was to freaking hitting my take profit. And this would have been the day of the trade. This would have been a 23-hour trade. I missed it by 13 basis points, 13 pips. Unbelievable. That sucks, doesn't it? Because peace of mind and also ROI. You pay less money in funding, and it makes a difference over time. Because to hold futures, you have to be paying pay funding fees. So this chopped around. This actually was pretty nerve wracking. I know this is the 4 hour, but I was like, during these, this is always the worst when you're like, all right, you have to think about like your risk to reward, Evolving R, Trader Dante, Trader XO. These really great traders talk about this. It's like, if you're not moving your stop up here, then your RR is like god awful, right? I was 13 basis points from hitting this, and I actually didn't move my stop up. I'm old school like that. Yeah, so it's a zero. I mean, there's 0R trade. It's not entirely true. I did move my stop up. I waited, and then I was like, all right, this weekly level, again, obviously not a great RR here, but it chopped around, and I was pretty confident this would hit it. And I, in full transparency, got a little nervous, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna lower it to this bar here because it seemed like, you know, this is creating a range. This is range highs. It started to create this kind of like range highs. And I saw this kind of as range lows. And I got filled right here. But again, I moved my stop, take profit lower, and then this wick barely fills it, and I saw that, and then it did this breakdown, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But I held strong. I did move it again, and I got filled there. And then we wicked higher, which honestly I don't love, kind of an up thrust like that and then reacceptance back into this range. So let's see. I mean, best case scenario for SUI bulls is it just pops around in here. Worst case is you lose this, and we just kind of have to fill in some of the gaps, which is totally healthy and normal and fine. But yeah, those were my trades for Solana, for SUI, 8.9R for the week. Very happy, very excited for this week. Not entirely sure what it's going to hold, but I will be there to trade it. Have a great week. Good luck. Have fun. And don't forget to enjoy the ride. Thanks.